It's coming. And we're live.
Now we're live.
We're live.
Hi, everyone.
Cool.
Is anybody here?
No one's here. It doesn't show that anyone's here. We did something
We're on
wrong.
an off week. We're on an off week, so we might be a
We
little
got two
slow
people
today.
watching. Yeah, all right. Well,
We're here.
they got
It's
all the
out
good tips. Yeah.
Yes. Hello, Benjamin.
Well, welcome back. Two people.
Okay.
Welcome back. Welcome back. If you saw our
There's Doug.
previous...
Hey, Doug.
There's
Hey,
Doug.
Doug.
Cool. Yeah, we got
People
one.
will show up. They're just a little late,
Right.
and everybody will show up, so we'll be good. It'll all be good.
And Benjamin, you signed up for my membership area on YouTube. I appreciate that. It shows us in big bold that you're here, so thank you.
Welcome.
Where were we at last time? So we kind of ended on 3D dimensions. If you saw our last two previous shows, we've been going over the X16 features. It takes a long time to go through these, so that'll tell you, it's always a good release from Chief Architect. And we stopped off at 3D dimensions. There's Kenny Crocker.
Hey, Kenny.
Hi,
Mark.
Kenny.
We got people coming in. Cool.
Everybody.
John, you were talking about 3D dimensions and
Yes.
then not having it snap to something that you needed to snap to.
Yeah. Do you have any tips on that?
Let's just try it out because I'm curious. I actually didn't know you could dimension to roofs. I don't know that you can though. I don't think you can. There is no setting in dimensions defaults for snapping to roofs. So that's kind of a funny one. But yeah, this is showing my highlight color right now. If you could see this on the screen, and right, that's my highlight. You notice when I highlight this wall, it's highlighting the entire geometry of the wall. Highlight this wall, it's doing the same. I'm highlighting the window. And so this is basically giving you an indicator that this is in plane with what we are expecting to dimension to. So that if I then click my left mouse button, it puts a target on there, which I kind of like. And then I just get to drag through the building, and hopefully it picks up what I wanted to pick up.
So it's still a hopefully thing. It's not necessarily a guarantee what you're picking up.
So it should be, because it's using your active dimension default for that view. So the view I'm in right now, if I'm going to switch to just the regular toolbars, and we went to go hit the edit the active view button, that's going to bring this dialog up, and then we've got the selected defaults panel, right? And then that's going to let me know that, hey, my dimensions for this view, right? And this is my template, so I set it up so that it's doing kitchen dimension, because I figure that's the only dimension default I'm going to use in 3D.
So you had it set up to measure from surfaces, because I noticed it looked like it was measuring from the siding.
Yeah, it's set up to measure from surfaces. So this is kind of like a remodel workflow for me. So if I were to switch this then instead to new construction, right, and then press OK, then if I were to use that same tool, click on this wall, drag through, notice this time it's actually picking up my window. It's actually picking up my interior main layer of the walls.
But you could change that, right? So you could get it to the exterior if you wanted.
You could, yes. You do, instead of primary, secondary side, you just do the primary side only. And then notice that this dimension default's using a different text style. So one has, fill, and the other one is transparent in the text.
One's using inches, and the other one's using
exactly.
inches.
So when you do, you set the target using your left mouse, and then you have to hold your left mouse down to be able to drag it, or once you set the target?
Single click to set your target, and then you can just, I believe, you have to click and drag through.
And then click again.
No, just click and drag through and let go. And then that sets your dimensions.
But the target, you have to set the target first.
Right.
And then do it.
Yeah. Okay.
And so we're going to get rid of a couple of these. There's a few other tricks that we have with this. When this tool is active, you're going to notice that the edit toolbar, which is usually at the bottom of your screen, has a few options here. And one of those is Do you want to draw on the surface or do you want to draw on a bounding box? Now the surface would be the geometry of something versus the bounding box of that object. Okay.
Can you show the difference?
Sure. Let's just place an object real quick.
Oh, the bounding box is going to be the outside of it.
Right. So if we look very closely to this cabinet, this is the bounding box, right? That pink is the representation of the bounding box, but notice that the countertop overhangs that bounding box. That's the actual geometry of the object. So that would be the difference between the two.
Well, and the door, actually, the door of the cabinet is not part of the bounding box as well.
Right. And by the way, I clicked on the cabinet tool, and not a ton of people know this, but I believe out of the box is an escape, John, that will cycle through your previous tools.
I think so, yeah.
So I'm just going to hit that a couple times, and that'll get me back to that dimension, right? I use that all the time. A lot of people forget that you can do that. You don't need to go click on a new tool. You could cycle back through your previous tools or cycle through your tools as you've cycled backwards. So
I just want to mention to everybody that's watching right now, we're probably short on attendance today because we're on an off week. We were supposed to be last week, but we changed it to this week because of 4th of July.
Yeah.
So if you've got an itching question that you want to ask, this might be a good time to do it.
This is a good time, yeah. You have our attention.
Change the agenda, whatever we want to do today. So
yeah.
If you got a question, go ahead and put it out there.
John, would you mind while I'm doing this too? Can you post our live feed into the users of Chief Architect Group? Because they took away, Facebook took away the ability for us to stream directly to a group, so we have to repost our live.
So how do I do that?
So you'd go to either my channel or the Chief Experts page or my page, and then share the actual live over to one of those. All right. Oh, and there you go. There's a big problem. Bruce Robinson says the email link sends you to the last show. That's on Dan. Oh. And Dan's not here for us to yell at him.
Okay.
Thank you, Bruce.
Thank you, Bruce. So I've got that dimension tool still up. And note
you're set on bounding box right now or not? Yes, you are.
Set on bounding box. And then what I've got here is we can set our offset is this tool. Now, any tool in Chief Architect, when you just hover over that tool for long enough, it should give you a preview of what that tool is doing, or what that tool is called. So in this case, sometimes, there we go. Draw on surface is what this one's called. And then hover over this, set offset. So if I click on this, it's going to bring up a little dialog box, which popped up on my second screen here. And it's telling me, offset from drawing surface. So if I wanted my dimension to be offset by 36 inches instead of the 12, now when I click and drag through, this is going to be 36 inches away from the building as opposed to 12.
Nice.
All right. So the next thing about this is we've got a few settings that we can set up here. And if you just click on your dimension string, you can get to those settings. So I'm going to open this object up, and I'm going to go ahead and define my dimension default. And then I have not practiced this, so I might need to look a little bit, but there is a way to set this up so that our primary format for 3D should be facing us if we wanted it to. Like the text should be facing us in this case. And I'm not really sure where that is. Do you know offhand?
Text for what?
The 3D dimensions, text facing us, so that it's always facing us.
Yeah, I'm not sure where it is.
Yeah, that setting is buried in here somewhere. I'm not sure either. Extension markers. We'll have to find that. Maybe we'll come back to it. But there is a way so that you can set this up so that your text is always rotating, so that it's always facing the camera. So if you're setting up a particular view and it's a heavy angle like this, then your text will be facing you. And I did mention this in the last show, but if for some reason your text is very blurry like this right here, it may be that you have the AMD fidelity setting set up for this. So that's in our edit the active view as well. So I'd be clicking on edit active view. And then in the camera panel up here, if you have this set to performance because you're trying to maybe work on a slower machine and be able to see live that ray trace view, then I suggest you put it on performance. But for doing a final shot where you're trying to render something with dimensions, you want to make sure you take this back to native resolution, and that's going to crispen this up, right? Because this is a raster based image, so this should help make this display a little bit better.
Cool. That's good.
Let's see. I said Mark Beatty says general tab at the bottom, label faces camera. Let's try that out. So we're going to grab this. And thank you, Mark. That always helps. General tab, and at the bottom, label faces camera. There it is.
Nice.
So with that clicked, you're going to see that this label does in fact rotate with the camera as I rotate around.
Brilliant.
So there's a couple of, yeah, thank you, Mark. I love it when people interact with us and give us the solution. That's great.
Yes.
There's a couple of edit handles you might want to know in this particular view is we've got, and it depends on what you have your edit handle colors set up as. And some of these edit handle colors only show up in certain views. So let me change mine real quick. If you didn't know how to do this, edit preferences on a PC, and I think it's the Mac logo and preferences on a Mac. But in the colors panel, I have selected edge handle fill and secondary handle fill. I'm going to change my secondary handle fill just so we can really see this. I'm going to turn this into like a neon green here, and let me press OK. And so now when I select this, we're going to see there's that neon green showing up. There's very few items in Chief Architect where this shows up aside from the dimension strings. So here we go. That green handle, which is now my secondary handle, this will move the dimension string further away or further towards what it's dimensioning to. So if I click and drag this, there we go. I'm moving that dimension string. And do keep in mind that tab or enter still work for us to offset this a particular distance. So I'm still holding my left mouse, and while I'm dragging, I'm going to hit tab. It's going to bring up this designation right here. And notice in 3D, it's really difficult to drag linearly in a specific direction. So if I'm dragging, let's see if shift works. Sometimes when you're holding shift, it'll drag in a particular direction, but no, that doesn't work. So I'd have to know the angle I'm going, 180, and then I know the distance I want to drag it, 24, something like that. So
just realize it may get skewed. It may get skewed. Yeah. Okay.
Now our primary edge handle, that's this guy right here, this black one, that's going to change the height of that dimension string, so that if I take this up above the roof line, notice that it even does a little cut because it's trying to dimension something that this main line is higher than that particular item. So it's going to make this little jog down to the extension line.
Nice.
And then we do still have the ability to draw back this dimension, right? So I can bring that back level. And if I draw through, it's not going to do anything because I believe that's because my reach setting is so small that it's not going to pick up additional dimensions in this case.
Only because you've moved it.
Yeah.
If you didn't move it, you would have been able to grab something.
Well, no, I think it's actually because my extension, because it's too far from the building. So if I move this closer to the building and then try that out, let's see if that works.
Now you did two things there. You moved it up, down, and closer to the building.
Yeah. And so now if I drag through, yes, it will in fact pick it up. And that, I believe, is because of my reach setting in manual. So general reach, that's this number right there. I think we could try it out. Let's go. Let's say 48.
Try one other thing when you're done with that. Try drawing your dimension underneath the window and see if it'll pick it up.
Okay. So this is dragged out a little bit more than 48 inches. Let's get a little closer. There you go. So that, yeah, that reach setting does in fact affect that in 3D.
Nice.
And then, John, what did you want to do?
Draw the dimension like a couple feet below the window and see if it still picks up the window or
See
not.
if it'll pick it up. So let me go back and cycle back through. And then click this, and I'm going to draw. All right, so it's picking it up there because my reach is set to 48. So if I went really far below, yeah, it's still picking that up because it's still. And so if I just change this back to 8 inches. Yeah, now it's not picking it up. So that reach setting still does affect things in 3D in terms of what you're reaching.
Cool.
And then you were talking about accurately picking up and snapping to something. So this is a little touch and go.
A snap point that's a snap point that's not part of your dimension stream.
So
settings.
Even though it looks like we're in model space, snap points are in sheet space right now. I've never tried to define that on air or in a document, so I can try right now. So model space would be considered that, we're essentially in a 3D view. We've got an XYZ coordinate, so that if I were to draw, say, a cabinet, I can draw this cabinet and manipulate it in all the axes, right? But anything that is a polyline based object, not anything, some things that are polyline based objects are still are still in sheet space in this view, which means that we're not getting true XYZ. So that even though it may look like this corner, I can click on this corner and accurately place something on this corner. In fact, all I'm doing is picking up an XY coordinate, and the Z coordinate could be anything. It could be something way off in the distance. So if we're, and just to give you an example of this, I'm going to switch my stuff so I can get to a solid here. I'll draw a solid out, right? And if I wanted to, and I'm really trying to snap to this corner, well, I'm not sure that that's actually going to pick up every time, especially if we start doing something like adding a molding polyline. We don't know that we're actually snapping to something because it just looks like I'm dragging this to the point where, hey, maybe it's picking up this corner of the building, but look, it's not actually on the corner of the building.
Yeah. Another example would be working with roofs. Working with roofs in 3D. You might get it, you might not.
Right. Or molding polylines. That's when you can't, especially like if you separate the molding from your cabinets and you try to do it in 3D, sometimes it gets off in a weird angle.
Yeah, and actually I reported this the other day, but they grade out molding lines in 3D. So if you didn't, if you were missing that, go report it. Hopefully that'll get fixed in the next update.
Cool.
So in terms of snapping this dimension line, the best success I have is when you decide you want to add, a dimension extension here and pick up something new, which is this edit handle right here. I just say that rotate your view so that you're aligned with the thing that you want to snap to, and that's hopefully going to help you out a little bit. So I think that I'm snapping to the surface right now, and I'll just do it with the zoom in, right? So it does look like I'm snapping to the surface, but maybe I wanted to snap to the main layer. Well, how do we do that? And so that's the trick, is like, I'm not sure that we can do that without getting up into the building envelope and actually snapping to that main surface.
So what you're saying is your dimensions may be accurate. Maybe accurate.
If the points are part of your dimension type that you have selected, like, edge of window for surfaces, stuff like that, they should be accurate. If you're trying to move it to a custom point, then it might be accurate.
That makes sense. That makes sense. But ideally, these kind of detailed dimensions should really be happening in your plan view or an elevation view, not so much in 3D. It's more.
Well, you can't manipulate this dimension in a plan view, unfortunately. Not that I know of anyways. So you have to kind of come into this view instead. And so maybe you use the cross-section slider to kind of help with your accuracy, so that if I were to take this dimension, pull it back again, pick up an extension and try to pick up that wall.
Got it.
There we go.
That's
right.
pretty good. Right.
So that's pretty good. The other thing to note is that we have an active dimension default control, which I love having in my toolbars because I switch my defaults all the time. So that's what this is right here. Is I've got a drop down of the different dimensions I could be using at any time, right? My different defaults I've created. So that's a fantastic tool for on the fly switching what I want to dimension to. So if I want to switch to some kind of NKBA thing where I've got a bunch of cabinets in here and I want to dimension to them with that standard, I get to just switch this down to my NKBA, and then I can very easily use one of my dimensioning tools to dimension this the way I want to, and it's going to send it to the correct layer and everything the way I want it to. So we don't have that in this view. We don't have that drop-down control. So you do have to go in and edit the active view back to that selected defaults and change it here. Another option is you could use default sets to do that automatically. So you could set up a default set previously called annotation sets. And now I could drop this down to 3D kitchen cabs. And that's in that default set. I have a dimension default I've set up for this view. So that very quickly switches me to that NKBA dimension default on the fly.
So you got to answer. You got any thoughts for Ethan here? So I love the look of 3D dimensions, but in practice, I have yet to find a use for them.
I can answer this because I asked the question the other day, and it's really more for interior space is where I think it would be helpful. Like when you're trying to explain how an interior space is going to work and give your clients more of an idea of how that space is going to live, it's easier for people, your clients, to be able to see things in 3D for them than for them to see them in 2D. And I think that's how I would use them.
Yeah, why not? Boy, this is an old template, so it's got some funny settings, but maybe that's helpful, maybe not. I think
you want to get them closer to the cabinets, of course, but
yeah, I think right now you could, do a what is it? Alt-C and CAD detail from view. Oh, that's interesting. How come I can't do a CAD detail from view from a 3D view?
If you can't, you'd have to change it to a line drawing. Change it
to a vector view?
Vector view, or change it to a line drawing.
So, I mean, you could do some orthographic details this way. I just don't like doing it. Oh, that's an interesting thing. Let's go Alt Window Fill View. Oh. Boy, that's something to report, huh?
What you do?
And we have to also answer Doug's question. Ethan, I would, as an interior designer, would use it to be able to show clients space, not necessarily the cabinets, but walking areas. That's how I would use it. And I think that might be helpful, or for a client to be able to see, essentially how much to be able to see the space. To me, I think it's more of a client-driven tool.
Yeah. I think in the future, I'm just guessing that we're going to get 3D annotations, and then you could do orthographic details, and that would be my use case for it, because I would do some orthographic details.
And I just think that so many clients say they know what a floor plan is and how a floor plan works, but in reality, I don't think most of them see things the same way. I'm always shocked when people tell me after something is built, wow, I had no idea how much space I was going to have here. It's like, well, it's been on the plans for, I don't know, 6 months, but they still don't see it. So I think that's where we do need to go back to Doug's question, because I think there's a value in that question.
So here's Doug's question. Can you explain the walls and wall layers? So they're walls, interior walls, exterior, when setting up is the correct method or for nomenclature, the layer placement, new, existing, etc.
Okay.
I love these questions. These are fabulous. Thank you, guys.
I also wanted to just note for Ethan, sometimes it's nice to do a graphical overview of your plan like this, especially with the new Poche Fill feature. And so the 3D dimensions can actually show up on this view as well. So that might be something to consider, where you're doing a full floor plan with, because this is a 3D view. So you're doing a full floor plan with furnishings and everything, and then you can actually dimension it as well in that view.
Oh, that's cool. That's a great idea.
Okay, so the question is, can you throw that on the screen again, John? Walls and wall layers. There's walls interior, walls exterior. Well, so walls interior and walls exterior, Doug has my template. That's specific to my template, and that's not out of the box. I have it set so my interior wall goes to an interior wall layer, and my exterior wall goes to an exterior wall layer. And then I even have it set so that it goes to new versus existing. And I have a different wall type for new, different wall type for existing, right? And that's really so it's easy then if I draw in some interior walls and suddenly I need to make a change to all exterior walls and I got a really complex plan. There's a couple ways you could select all your exterior walls, but if you're automatically sending your walls to different layers, interior versus exterior, it's super easy to come in and say, hey, let's hide this layer. And now I can just easily select all my exterior walls to make some kind of a change. That's one benefit of it. Another benefit of it, and I'll just draw with what I call a new exterior wall type, is that I can isolate exterior from interior and drive that from the layers that those walls live on. So that's one thing. And then if he's talking about layer assemblies, and this gets really complicated to teach. So I'm opening up a wall, I'm getting into the wall types panel, and I'm going to define my wall type here. There's a couple of different ways you can get to this. I'm defining the wall type I'm already on. You can obviously go into the walls within edit default settings. So we've got exterior layers, main layer, interior layers. Now, these are just names that Chief are giving our assembly stack, right? But the thought here is that an interior layer would be on the interior side of a house. That changes a little bit once we are drawing an interior wall. But what's difficult about explaining this is we're calling this wall layers. A wall lives on a layer. Within a wall is a wall type. And then within that wall type are wall layers. And then you've got exterior layers, main layers, interior layers. And then you've got display layers. Everything's called layer. So it's really difficult to teach this. We've bugged Chief about changing some of the nomenclature.
That display layer is new in X16, right?
Yep. New in X16. Yep. And I have some of mine set by default to go to different display layers. The reason I'm doing that is for a future release where I'm expecting that we get fill styles by layer. But other than that, I don't have a reason to utilize this. I know some of the users do utilize this. I know Ethan Ashby utilizes this. What's nice about sending something to a different display layer is you can turn off, say in this case, I could turn off my vinyl siding, I could turn off my house wrap, and just leave my OSB sheathing in case I wanted to show very specifically that I got a braced wall plan or something like that.
Right.
So I'll give you an example of this. I'm going to send this OSB to a new layer. All right, we're just going to call it blank 1. And then I'm going to send every layer, on top of that in the exterior stack to a new layer as well. So we'll just go blank 2. And then this last one, blank 3. And right now I have it so that my layers, their fill styles are derived from the color of the layer that they reside on. So notice that in the preview, all of those turned black because by default, when you make a new layer, they are set to black. All right. So when I press OK, and we're going to see I've got that black exterior layer. If I wanted to show a sheathing plan, then I want to turn off that lap siding and that and anything else. So I'm going to turn off that level 2 and level 1, right? And so that's just going to leave me with just sheathing. If I turned off my line weights, we're going to very clearly see this. So it's a way of showing a sheathing plan in this case. I'll show you even, more than that is, let's just say my sheathing is only required to go 4 feet, right? So I make a break in the wall and I set this distance to be 48 inches. There we go. And now all I need to do is change this wall type to something that, you know, is set up differently. So maybe it's make that copy.
Renee, you just broke Doug.
I just broke Doug. So, I mean, if I then sent these layers specifically to new layer styles and turn them off, then it'd be very clear that I'm showing just bracing on this 4-foot section and nothing else, right? So that'd be one implementation of that.
And this is already set up in your template.
Well, I just did this as an example. So no, this isn't set up in particular. Okay. I have new versus existing and exterior versus interior wall types. That's something I have. And then on the in terms of what's an interior layer versus an exterior layer for on the interior walls is right now, if I go to default settings and get into walls, general wall, and we open up this dialog box, it's going to show us that by default, this is set to main layer outside. I do a lot of remodels, so I have this set to inner surface, which means that my temporary dimensions resize based on that.
Renee, you have the resize about set to that. We need to make that clear.
Yes, resize about
you're talking about.
Yeah. So to understand this further, let's say that we had a 2x6 exterior wall assembly, right? 2x6 exterior wall assembly, and then this suddenly needs to change to 2x8. Here's what I know. I know that the interior dimensions were accurate in my plan. If I have this set to resize about inner surface, that means we are essentially locking the inner surface where it is. And so if I changed the size of this wall, which you could do just from the general panel, you could change the size of this wall by adding 4 inches to it, which adds 4 inches to the main layer of that wall. You're going to see it kept that interior surface side. It resized about that interior surface side. Something to know about the interior versus exterior in walls is that I'm going to put a door here. I'm even going to offset this label for this door. I know because my general wall defaults are set to inner surface that this side is considered the interior side of this wall. All right. If for some reason I wanted to flip this, and let's say I wanted this label on the other side, I could, in my edit toolbar, reverse the layers. And it's going to flip. Now the interior side is on the other side. Notice that the door didn't flip, but notice that the label did. If we open this up and show an expanded dialog box where we see this in 3D, it shows you this is the exterior side. We rotate this about, that's the interior side. And something that I like to help me out is I like when it shows me start and end indicators right here. And that's in your preferences.
Renee, where was the resize about? Where was that?
That's in default settings, wall, general wall.
Doesn't that also affect how the walls line up when you're using a line above and below?
No, it should not. All right. Okay. How far along are we? We're halfway through, and we are still on the first item, which we covered last show. Let's see.
Okay, we opened this up to questions, and that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
So we're, you know, it's all good. Next week we're going to cover X16 3D renderings. So just come back.
We've been bugged a lot for that one. So
we do have to take just a quick break to talk about, since we're halfway through it, to talk about the summit. So I know most of the people that are here are really more advanced, but we really want to stress that if you know people who are really learning Chief and just at the beginning, this is not just for advanced people. This is definitely, the summit is broken down for beginner, intermediate, and advanced people. So don't feel like you can't recommend it to somebody. So it's really great. And there's so many opportunities for one-on-one support. If you're really need to learn how to do one special thing, we can break that out and work with you one-on-one. So just realize that you can, if you've been to it. If you came last time, I know that Ethan came, Bruce, you came the first year, right? Make sure that, if you let people know about this, if they ask about it, it's not just for advanced people. It's for beginners, intermediate, and advanced.
We've had people who just bought the program the week before.
Absolutely.
And they did really well.
Yeah. And people who are not just builders. I know most of you guys that came were builders and architects, but interior designers too. So don't, it's open to the whole thing. We work with all of you. We do not discriminate.
I think we do a pretty good job at juggling it all too. So
yep.
Yeah, we do.
I have yet to hear anyone say that they didn't feel like they, got specific training for what they needed.
Absolutely. And you can move around.
But hey, if you didn't, let us know.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So there's still openings if people are interested.
Are there still
all right.
a few left? Cool.
Yeah, there are still a few left.
Let's see. Cross-section slider for any view is next up. Or dimensional leader lines. Set up automatic leader lines for dimensions when there is... I'm not sure what automatic... Oh, I know what automatic leader lines are. That's this guy right here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, man. That's one of my favorites. That really made a big difference for a big kitchen.
Does it automatically put the curve in it, or does it make it straight?
Mine is set up to do that. So if we open this up, let's open this up and let's just define our dimension style. Or, you can always just double click one of your dimension tools on your toolbar. And then let's see, that is in the general panel. And I have mine set to curved line as opposed to straight line.
Nice. But you also can do the square. You can also do an L-shaped.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's under line style, or what is that under? I couldn't see it. I apologize. Can you zoom in?
It's under the general panel in your dimension default, and then it's in the leader line section on that panel.
Perfect.
And I like the curve line because I've got so many straight lines going on in the plan. I generally have curve lines for any kind of annotations, and I don't know, it helps me see it. So, but
got a quick question here we should probably tackle so we don't forget. What's the fastest way to get the side views of an object for a CAD detail, such as a truss hanger from Simpson?
Okay. Simpson has a number of 3D objects, and so that would be your best bet, is finding a 3D hanger. So let's see if we can actually find hanger. So I'm going to type in hanger first, and then I'm going to highlight this and type in Simpson and drop down to manufacturer. So this is limiting my search to just the Simpson strong tie manufacturer. And here we go. We've got some hangers. I need to download that catalog. So I right-clicked and clicked on download, and that's a big old download. Dang. It's a huge catalog, 500 meg. And then once I have that downloaded, I should be able to place it and pull a section view. And then, yeah, you could do a CAD detail from that section view.
Nice.
Hey, cool. This is showing us another one of our members here. Look at that. He's got a little tag on it. Thank you for signing up for a membership. That's a membership for my YouTube channel, and I drop in a bunch of exclusive content there. Thank you. All right. So I've got this item, and let me see if I can't place it. Hanger. Place it anywhere. And I'm just going to pull, in this case, let's just pull a back clip cross section so we can just see this very clearly. So there's our hanger, right? Something to keep in mind when you are pulling a CAD detail for this. So let's just do our CAD detail from view, is that this is no longer going to be a closed polyline, right? It's going to be very segmented, meaning if I drag this out, look at that, that's just a line segment. So if you want to try to get this to be, well, you could block it. Keep in mind when you block this, you want to make sure that this is on a, try to keep that on some kind of a default layer, because if you put it on a custom layer and you put a block within another block within another block, it's a little bit messy if you've got custom layers going on. So I'm going to select this, and what I like to do is I use the extend tool in our edit toolbar. So extend objects, and then just draw a line or two. I might even do this a couple times, and that just makes it so any disconnected CAD segments that have shared endpoints might just connect. So you can see here it was still broken at some point here. There's actually a break in this. So it's not perfect. You might have to do a little bit of cleaning up, but so it might take a minute to get this to be one solid polyline based object.
All right, Renee, you need to do that one more time because that was a cool trick.
Right over here.
So I selected the whole item, and then I wanted to use
Now it's not blocked together right now, right?
It's not blocked together. So I'm going to use extend objects and draw a couple of lines through. So what this does, let me just give a better example of what extend does. I've got a line here, and I've got a series of lines here. I want all of these lines to have a shared endpoint that terminates at this line. All right. So this line right here, I want all of these to extend to that line. So I'm going to click on the line that I want to use as what we would call a fence. Use that extend objects tool. That's this guy right here. And then I get to draw a line through anything that I want to extend. And notice it shows us a preview, right? So there we go. We extended all those lines to that object. Take this.
So if you were to hit undo there and put another line down below it and select both lines, is that what's happening when you're doing it's just finding each other, basically?
Say it again.
Right? So if you drew another line down there, make it so those lines are short again. So hit undo once.
Well, here, we'll just do this. I'm going to right click draw with my line tool, which gives me a continuous draw mode. And if I want to stop continuous draw, right and left click together. I'm going to take this, and this time I'm going to use the trim objects tool, and I'm going to draw a line through what I want to trim. Notice that we're highlighting those lines as I'm drawing through them. There we go, trim to that object. And that object remains selected, so I could delete it.
Right. So now select the top and bottom line, the horizontal lines, and can you extend to both those lines at the same time?
No. That's a good question. Yes, you can.
Yes, you can.
Wow.
Although that first one is not. Oh, because my line's short, maybe? I don't know. I don't know why that first one didn't do it. It's interesting.
But that's kind of what's happening when you select the whole thing and you draw the lines through it. It's doing it. That's what it's doing. It's finding more than one thing and drawing to it.
Yeah. And I mean, these tools exist in many different sections. So like if we had a line here and I chose that line and I wanted to extend object, let's see, does that work on roof lines? No, I think it works if you have an existing roof selected.
It might not be working because you that point is not going to come together. It's going to go past itself before you get to the line.
Yeah.
With what you were doing there.
You can use a roof to trim something. So there you go.
Okay.
Number of different ways to do that. Utilize that. So that's all I was doing here is I was selecting everything here and using the extend and drawing through that and using extend again and hopefully catching anything that had a shared endpoint and turning it into one object. So it definitely has some breaks up here where this is considered a polyline up here. By the way, if you're ever trying to get into some detail work here and you've got something like this going on where the temporary dimensions are just overpowering your view, you could either turn off temporary dimensions or you could make a custom dimension default where I have one called macro zoom. Now when I click on something, those dimensions should be a lot smaller. All right, we got some other questions?
Nothing yet. They've just been talking about how you're frying everybody's brains.
Oh. Okay. Sorry.
You broke Doug. You really broke Doug.
That's funny.
Right, why don't we talk a little bit about your smaller template that you have for sale? We were talking about that a little bit before the show.
Oh, sure. You know, I have my really expensive template that I use.
Hang on one second. Mike wants to know, did they fix the rich text zoom issue? And then talk about that.
I don't know what the rich text zoom issue is. Let's draw some rich text. Sure. Can you explain it more, Mike?
Was there? I don't know what he's talking about either. Was there an issue with resizing the text on the fly? Well, using the
gotcha. So if I shift select this text and then drag that out, no, that works. If I right click this text, that works.
Give us a little more info, Mike.
Yeah, I'm not sure either.
Oh, it's in ray trace. Change zoom to see better in 4K monitors. Wow.
In ray trace, change zoom.
So the text size wasn't changed when you
he's
changed
saying
the monitor.
ray trace. No, he's saying ray trace, not saying text, right?
No, the rich text wasn't changing the size when you changed your monitor resolution by just zooming it instead of changing the resolution.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Sounds like it would be a Windows thing as much as it would be.
You're going to make me do a DPI change right now? Oh, man. You're trying to break my computer. Let's see. So on a Windows machine, if I change my scale, which is essentially our DPI of all text-based objects, and now I come back into...
This is Mike on
Mac. We're going the wrong direction.
No, you are. And Mike, I think, isn't Mike, aren't you using a Mac? I think Mike's on a Mac.
In the ray trace box. And change the zoom. Change the zoom level, which I've never done. Okay.
No, I've never done that either.
No, I've never done that either.
Look in the menu. Open the rich text box.
Yeah. No, we just did it. That changed the zoom level.
Yeah.
Seems to be working. Boy, there's so many levels to this dang program that I don't ever touch.
Sections for viewing larger in the box. Yeah, no kidding. And what I love is how everybody uses the program totally different.
Yep.
No two people use the program the same.
He says it's broken on the Mac.
Gotcha.
Okay, and no Mac jokes. No Mac jokes.
I didn't say anything.
I know, but you're all thinking it.
I was actually talking to Kevin the other day. He's got me considering getting a Mac.
I would love to go back.
Not for everything, but for when I'm on the road, having a lighter laptop than what I have now.
Yeah.
Anyway.
All right.
Go to your tools when you have a chance. So don't listen to Kevin.
That's key number one, right? Let's see. Right. This is my essential template, which looks a lot like my Pro Plan template, and it has a lot of the features that is in the Pro Plan, but it's stripped down and a little bit more bare. So it doesn't come with my toolbars, and it does not have my detail system, and it doesn't have some of the specialized schedules that I include, and it doesn't include library items. But it still is just an out-of-the-box template that works really well. So we draw 4 walls. We've got automatic dimension defaults going on. We've got, we still have some automatic labeling conventions that stack labels, and when you switch to different views, reformat for you. I've still got my dynamic room label system, which will hide plate heights in certain views versus showing plate heights in certain print views, including showing, whether or not something's a vaulted ceiling or not, etc. So it's got some special features in here. It has my really complex cabinet labeling system in the essential plan. So it knows when something's a substandard size, it'll throw the depth in there. It knows when something's a 3-drawer box, 2-drawer box, garbage pullout, etc. So,
but it does not include your kitchen tools.
Doesn't include the kitchen tools, and it doesn't include library items, nothing like that. But out of the box, this is a really simple template to draw in, and it's very affordable. So
And is
go
it
check that out.
available in metric? But that's just something you would change on your system, right? Not
No,
in-
it's not available in metric, and I'm working on that, Norman. But I'm having an issue. Metric versus imperial has some weird little funny things happening in X16 when you try to transfer stuff over, and I can't quite figure out what it is. That and transferring default settings does not transfer all default settings, so I still have to go through one by one and match default settings. So it's pretty complex to do to build a metric template. I wish they just gave us better tools for transferring that stuff over. What's weird is you can set an imperial right now in X16, which you couldn't do this before. You could set an imperial template as your default metric template. So that's what's really strange. And I haven't discovered if that's saving me time or just causing me issues.
One of the things that we talked about before the show, Renee, was the fact that I can use my toolbars and my save plans views and things like that with your template, with your smaller template anyway, right?
Yeah, you can import.
I don't have to use your toolbars or anything like that. I can use your template.
Don't have to use the toolbars. Yeah, you can import your own save plan views if you'd like. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, the settings are supposed to make some things easy. I've already got rendering settings in this plan, so when you pull a perspective overview, this should already be a pretty good looking rendering out of the box.
Nice.
Same thing with just the interior cameras. That should look pretty good out of the box. It's set up for performance, so I have a video on, because right now it looks very muddy. That's on purpose, so that if you've got a lower end card, that it's not just killing that card, and hopefully you could actually design in this view. But I do have a video out there on how to get you to that finalized view that you want, where we're changing that AMD fidelity setting and we're changing our sample rate. So we'd be changing this back to native resolution. Maybe you want to kick on some sharpening, and then we'd be getting into our ray trace rendering settings and kicking up the sample rate as needed, and maybe you need to kick up the backdrop as well. Who knows?
But we're going to learn all about that, and we're all going to be pros a week from Saturday.
Yeah, in one show, right? You're going to be a pro.
We're going to learn all about it on Friday, and on Saturday we're going to be a pro at it.
I got to say, it's really tough to, everybody just wants the special rendering settings that just make every shot look great, and it's tough for me to wrap my head around that, because that's not how it works. So I can give you some settings that'll look pretty good out of the box. I say this more often than not. Rendering is 90% materials. So if you can source good materials, really doesn't matter what your technique settings are. It's going to look good. And then we got some new features that I feel like I can say I had a heavy hand in helping Chief with those features, because I did a little interview, I had a little post, I had a little sit-down discussion with them, and they implemented some really cool stuff. That team is particularly fun to talk to as well. So if you're in Idaho, come sit down. We're going to talk rendering again, I'm sure. I'm going to go talk to those guys again.
So what's the next thing on the list? I don't see any more questions.
We've got cross-section slider for any camera view. That's really nice. Before, we couldn't get that in a orthographic view. So now in an orthographic full overview, we have this guy right here, cross-section slider, which is in your 3D menu. And that's in camera view options, cross-section slider. And that brings up this dialog box. And so I could just cut the ceiling off very easily. And you can do multiple cuts at the same time. And then on top of that, this is where you might use that new feature in the edit the active view display poche. I've got it set to black here. And there we go. It filled those section cuts. So that's pretty cool.
Nice.
I would, one more second. I would love it if everybody threw this suggestion, and this is going to be something I'm lobbying for big time when we head to the Idaho for Chiefs training event, is I want layers to have fill styles associated with them, so that if you have a wall that's exploded to different layers, then we could automatically have the poche fill according to that fill style, which means I could have a grid fill style on this wall. I could have a solid fill style on my sheathing. I could have a concrete fill style on the concrete here. And that would really make a big difference for some kind of 3D detail.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what's going on with this question here. Baseline drift off the outside of a wall. Can you give us a little more detail on that?
Baseline drift.
I don't know if he's talking about a
Baseline
roof.
is a roof baseline. I don't know if that would drift either.
I've never had it drift. I've had it move. If I move a wall and you don't have your auto roofs turned on, it's not going to move with the wall.
Yeah.
Here we go.
That's because he probably did something wrong. Good old Larry.
Renee,
no, this is possible.
Okay, and then once you manually return them, that messed up all your roofs, right? They probably stopped lining up. This is why I like doing roofs in 3D, especially now when they have reflect about a diagonal. So if I turn off these roofs and go pull a view, it's really easy now. If you want to make sure your baselines are locked up, right, and they're exactly in the right correct position, I could just copy paste this reflect about diagonally about this corner, and now I know that baseline is in the correct location because I reflected about an object where the baseline was in the correct location.
Yeah.
If you're only modeling a roof and you're not looking for other information off of it, like height above plate and that kind of thing, it doesn't really matter if your baseline is on the wall or not, because you're going to be manipulating that roof with the fascia height and the ridge height and not off the baseline height. So
yeah,
he's getting away with it because he's not.
I always like to tell people to learn the baseline polyline based modeling. Let's just say I've got a garage here, for instance, a very short garage. And so I'm going to turn off my auto build roofs. I'm going to switch to that view and just kick these off real quick. Actually, no, I'm going to go to build roof, and then I'm going to say make roof baseline polylines. Okay. And so let's say instead that this overhang lines up. And so you get to manipulate a baseline polyline with this. So I can just line this up with the garage roof here. And now I've got one single plane going all the way across. I mean, this is a really simple way of modeling a roof. Right? So this is that setup. Let me just stack these side by side so we can see it. So another thing that you could do in your auto build roof setting is that we could say same height eaves, right? So that if you do have some kind of overhang that you're building, but you've got like a gable stack going on. So if I break this plane again, oops, I break this polyline and extend this forward, you're gonna notice that it picks up because we've got same height eaves. So my eaves are set at the same height, but now I've created, a different gable stack, if you will, which we see a lot in remodels. Unfortunately, making the baselines doesn't honor setting a wall-based designation for a roof. So setting the wall to be a gable end, that doesn't actually work. I have to come back into the plan view and edit the polyline. So I'd select this edge of this polyline, open it up, say that it's a full gable wall in this case.
So in a lot of ways, this was the forerunner system of doing automatic roofs, and now we have it so that we can do it off of a wall.
Yeah, and I mean, right, and I like this method. This gets you some auto build roofs that that end up getting really, really close to accurate without a ton of work. I'm going to just set this to extend slope downward, which is going to assume a lower plate height. And you see there that now extended this forward across the garage.
Nice. Nice. Renee, can we go back to that comment you were talking about the layers having feel style? If somebody was making, would that work for a material region too, where you could save a material region as, for example, I think I called you about this one time. We were trying to make a rug and then have it come in with a fill style. And will that be able to help that as well?
Yeah. If it would be anything that has a fill style, you could set it to be fill style based on layer, and then the layer is designating the fill style, right?
Perfect.
But that would mean that you'd need, your rugs on a particular layer. And I don't like making a ton of custom layers because it's really hard to teach or distribute or, run that through an office, etc.
Right.
I try to keep my custom layers down to a minute. I think I maybe have like 12 custom layers now.
Yeah.
I know some people, Jared Beamer. How do you say his last name? Beamer?
I think so.
Beamer.
It's Beamer, like the car.
Yeah,
okay.
He's got so many custom layers.
Yeah, he does.
Make your head spin. Yeah. So I don't know how he teaches his people.
I think he just does it for everybody. He's pretty meticulous. It's pretty cool.
Dude, we're at the hour mark. Wait, why is Mike frustrated?
He's frustrated with the baselines.
But if you cut from it, it would be wrong. I'm not sure what that means.
He has a cut system where he can pre-cut stuff in the shop and send it out to the job.
Yeah. And I made a macro for him once that adjusted that to be correct, I think, but I think it was still wrong in some of the stick framing elements. I think the Chief, for some reason, changes the rafter length, reporter rafter length.
I would just save them all as different styles.
5 different kitchens. Can that be the same for outside wall veneers and windows? So you can have 5 options. So, you can do a style palette for different kitchen styles. I mean, that works pretty well.
He's talking about walls, though. He wants to do the same thing for walls, for exterior walls.
Oh, can that be the same for outside?
That I would put.
I just did a video on this.
Yeah, you put the exterior walls on their own layer, and then just select them all and change the wall type. And as long as they're at default, they'll all change.
Well, another way that I did it, and this is how Jared does his, is you can add 1/32 layers into your wall layer stack, and then put those each to their own display layer and turn off the display layer to show different.
That's cool.
I don't know that it's all that different from just painting with the material painter. Yeah, but I mean, I just did this video.
I wouldn't use the material painter. I would change the wall type.
Well, I would do the same, like you're saying, the wall types, but these are just for sales pitch, right?
Yeah,
it's just for sales pitch
showing
thing?
A quick change in look.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, you could do that in a number of different ways. I'd probably just use a material painter if I was just showing different looks real quick. Yeah, there's a post on Chief Talk where I suggest some things for X17 that I think would be really easy. And one of them was just, hey, do any improvement to style palettes and I would be happy. Anything. Because that's such a powerful tool. It's the closest thing we have to AI where you're just like, we click on something and change the entire look of a house.
Yeah.
All right. We made it.
Yeah.
We made it.
Yeah.
So next week we're doing rendering. Renee's gonna compress 6 months worth of training into an hour.
Yeah, real quick.
We don't do stucco in Oregon either. In Portland, on the east side, on the east side, but on the west side, too much rain.
Yeah, don't do stucco in Alaska. Yeah, we do it here in California.
Yeah, you guys do. You guys are famous for that.
Well, thank you to the 20 people that stuck with us. That's cool.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah. Everybody have a great week.
Next Friday.
Yeah, come back next Friday. We'll be back just next Friday, next week.
All right. We'll see you. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye.